Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnu Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam, Sadhasis with AC, Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada ki jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai, Premsaka Host Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siddhveda Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopika Shama Kunda Radha Kadiki Govardhan ki jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadap Dham ki jai, Gang Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvashesha Srinivadi Pastachade Shatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3, verse 25. Naste loke dvi parardavasane maham bhuteshvadi bhutam kateshu vyakte vyaktam kala vegena yate bhavan eka sisyate shesha sangya. Nashte, after the annihilation, Loke, of the cosmic manifestation, Dviparada Avasane, after millions and millions of years, life of Brahma, Mahabhuteshu, when the five primary elements, Adi Bhutam Gateshu, enter within the subtle elements of sense perception, Vyakte, when everything manifested, Avyaktam, into the unmanifested, Kala Vegena, and by the force of time, Yate, enters, Bhavan, your lordship, Ekaha, only one, Sisyate, remains, Ashesha Sangya, the same one with different names. Translation: after millions of years, at the time of cosmic annihilation, when everything manifested and unmanifested is annihilated by the force of time, the five gross elements enter into the subtle conception, and the manifested categories enter into the unmanifested substance. At that time, you alone remain, and you are known as Ananta Sheshnaga. Purport: at the time of annihilation, the five gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, enter into the mind, intelligence, and false ego, and the entire cosmic manifestation enters into the spiritual energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone remains as the origin of everything. The Lord is therefore known as Sheshanaga or Adi Purusha, and by many other names. Devaki therefore prayed. After many millions of years, when Lord Brahma comes to the end of his life, the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation takes place. At that time, the five elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, enter into Mahatattva. The Mahatattva, again, enters by the force of time into the non-manifest total material energy. The total material energy enters into the energetic pradhan, and the pradhan enters into you. Therefore, after the annihilation of the whole cosmic manifestation, you alone remain with your transcendental name, form, quality, and paraphernalia. My Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the director of the unmanifested total energy and the ultimate reservoir of material nature. My Lord, the whole cosmic manifestation is under the influence of time, beginning from the moment up to the duration of the year. All act under your direction. You are the original director of everything and the reservoir of all potent energies. So here, Devaki is displaying her awareness that Krishna, who has appeared as her son, is manifesting all of the material universes. And thus she recognizes that he is the Supreme Lord, full of all powers. Of course, the power to manifest universe is actually insignificant for the Supreme Lord. And therefore it is said that Krishna directly does not do this. In the spiritual world, Krishna also has these other forms, which we call expansions or amsa or swa-amsa. So we have Krishna, then we have the Vishnu forms with the Chaturvyuha expanding in various ways. And one of those expansions expands into the material realm, and that is Mahavishnu. And it is this Mahavishnu, who's outside of, Vaikuntha, who glances over Prakriti and manifests all the billions of material universes. So, in other words, it's not the Lord directly, but through his Purusha form as Mahavishnu, that he manifests everything. And how does Mahavishnu manifest everything? He glances. He doesn't have to exert any energies. Casually glances. And far away in the distance, matter suddenly transforms into Mahatattva, Ahankara, senses, sense objects, and gross material elements. And then they start combining into universes, billions of universes. And then Mahavishnu expands into each universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu creates Brahma, who creates all the planetary systems and all the bodies for the living entities. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands into Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And Kshirodakshaya Vishnu expands into all the jivas in the material world. And all this is done as a secondary work. Meanwhile, in the spiritual world, the Lord is going on with his Leela in Vaikuntha and in Goloka, without giving regard at all to the creation of the material world. And then Mahavishnu glances out, and he takes a breath, and then he breathes in, everything is destroyed again. So it's all done in a very, like say, effortless way by the Supreme Lord in his expansion of an expansion of an expansion. That's how the whole of the material realm is manifested. So we'll see this repeatedly described in Bhagavatam and other literatures. What is the point, ultimately, of describing this material world? Ultimately, it's not significant at all. Prabhupada in one place says, it is like a little cloud in the vast sky that appears and disappears like that. So it's actually not significant at all. Yet, we will see that throughout the Bhagavatam, here in the 10th canto, but starting in the 2nd canto, 3rd canto, 4th canto, and 5th canto, there's repeated descriptions of how the Lord creates this material world and expands into different forms. And we'll see that in the 2nd canto, there's an analysis of the Bhagavatam. And it says, of course, there are 10 topics. Ultimately, the topic is Krishna, who was called Asraya, the shelter and cause of everything. But besides that, there are 9 other topics. And if we look at these 9 topics, they all have to do with the creation of the material world and destruction of the material world. So 9 topics dealing with the material world, 1 topic dealing with Krishna and the spiritual world. So that sounds a little unbalanced. So the majority of the Bhagavatam that you have to study when you're taking, what is it, Bhaktivedanta, or which course is it? Bhaktivaibhav, Bhaktivedanta? Bhaktivaibhav, you have to go through all the cantos of the Bhagavatam. Most of it is all talking about material nature. How the world is created, etc. Starting, 2nd canto, 3rd canto, 4th canto, so many things. And of course we see that, what are the topics? Sarga and Visarga and Sthana. These are creation, sub-creation, and geography of the universe in the 5th canto, all material topics like that. And then, of course, the 9th topic is Nirod, destruction of the universe. So we have all these topics about creation, destruction of the material worlds, and only 1 topic for Supreme Lord, technically speaking. However, not so totally true. Within the material world, of course, the Lord creates the material world. That's the whole idea of these topics, Sarga, Visarga, etc. Lord creates the material world directly and indirectly. And he does not, even though he is completely oblivious of the material world while he's performing his pastimes in the spiritual world, he also very effectively takes care of the material world. And that's why he expands into, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu as Paramatma, and he's witnessing all the activities of all the jivas and all the universes individually. So down to the minutest level, the Lord is observing everything in the material world, in spite of the fact simultaneously he's not involved at all, and he's sitting in the spiritual world doing his pastimes. So he's also observing each jiva in each of his activities, each of his desires, each of his actions. He's observing everything, all the jivas. So he's like, in one sense, a micromanager. So he's so micro that he can observe everything, every second, that the jiva is thinking, and all the actions of the material body, everything. In that sense, he's a manager. But he's also not. He's completely aloof, because he just observes everything. And he arranges for you to do your things. So he's not really interfering with each jiva at the same time. So the Lord is also aloof, in spite of the fact that he's witnessing all the jivas in the material world. And what does he do? He helps them fulfill their material desires. Apart from that, the Lord does also not give up the world, because it shows that the Lord, by his arrangement, takes care of the material world in various ways, not leaving it just to haphazard chance. So therefore, there is discussion of how the Lord offers protection to the jivas, and particularly human beings. So after discussing these different topics, sarga, visarga, and sthana, then there is a topic called poshana, which means nourishment and protection. And so that's to do not within the material world or spiritual world, but in the material world. How the Lord, even in spite of the fact that he's kind of indifferent to the material world, he protects the jivas in the material world. And he does this in many ways. So the way that is illustrated in the 6th canto is that the Lord offers his mercy to the jivas, and especially to the human being, even if they're the most unqualified. And the example is given of Ajamil, most unqualified for getting any mercy because he was so sinful and whatever. But he chanted the name Narayan. That was the mercy shown. And through that, he destroyed all of his karmas, was purified of his sins, and he went to Vaikuntha. So the Lord does not abandon the jivas in the material world, in spite of the fact that he's neutral and he's observing his Paramatma and helping you attain your material desires. He's also got spiritual interests through the name. So the Lord is not indifferent to the jivas in the material world, and he doesn't just help you increase your prison, your sentence in the prison house by prolonging your karmas, etc., but he also makes attempts to get you out. So chanting the holy name is one way. But that's not the only way. We see that there's another topic called uti, which means impulse. So this describes the impulses in the material world. So basically there's two. There's the demonic influence, which causes material enjoyment and destruction of everything. And then there is the opposite, that is the spiritual influence, which is following Dharma and following spiritual processes, protecting the Vedas, etc. And the Lord favors the latter in the material world. And how is that illustrated? The example is given in the 7th canto of Nrsimhadev protecting Prahlad against the demon Hiranyakasipu. So the Lord will come even personally into the material world, not just in the form of his name and devotional service, he also personally appears to counter the influence of evil in this material world. So that's another topic discussed. Not only that, so he comes as avatar, but he doesn't come all the time as avatar. So the Lord makes another arrangement. That arrangement is that he empowers jivas in this material world to institute the Lord's spiritual plan. So one way he does this is, of course, he empowers devatas to rule over and manage sattva-gun, and he empowers the Manus and their descendants to rule over human population, see that they don't go wild and fall into tamagun, establishes dharma, and teaches bhakti. So that's what Manu and his descendants do. So this is another way in which the Lord takes interest, active interest in the material world, by empowering rulers to control the population and make sure that they don't commit too many sinful activities. So that's another way, through the Manus and their descendants. So that's, of course, the Manus last throughout the day of Brahma. For every day of Brahma, there are Manus ruling throughout the whole day for a whole Brahma's life. So therefore, there's continuous guidance given there. So that's during the Manvantara periods. So this is, again, the Lord's interests in the material world. So, of course, besides that, then, of course, the Lord does appear as Leela avatars to inspire the jivas of the material world. So these Leela avatars are discussed from 3rd canto, 4th canto, 5th canto, 6th canto, 7th, 8th, 9th, all the way through. These avatars are described in the different Manvantara periods when the Manus reign. So we get all the avatars like Matsya and Kurma and Nrsimha and Vamana and Varaha appearing. And these are discussed in the different cantos. Until in the 9th canto, then finally it comes to discussion of Moon Dynasty and Krishna finally appearing, and then a 10th canto. So in this way, there's a discussion of all the ways in which the Lord appears personally or indirectly by empowering Manus and sages, etc., and devatas. So these are the ways in which the Lord is not indifferent to the material world. Then, of course, he also encourages the jivas not just to practice dharma, he encourages them to get out of the material world. And therefore there are teachings about mukti, which is discussed in the 11th canto. And then finally, the Lord is discussed in relation to destruction of the material world. That is Nirod in the 12th canto. So in this way, the Lord is present during creation and during the whole maintenance. The Lord is manifested as bhakti in the holy name, empowering the Manus and their descendants, empowering the devatas, empowering the sages, etc., coming as various avatars within the material world to inspire the jivas and give teachings. And then finally, he destroys the whole material world. So this is a discussion of the creation, destruction of the material world. That's a majority of the contents of the Bhagavatam. But within that, we do have a discussion of how the Lord takes interest in the jivas, in the material world, in spite of the fact that actually he's completely separate and carrying on his pastimes eternally in the spiritual world. So simultaneously, he's, with these different means, he is taking care of the jivas in the material world also. So, of course, the ultimate topic, the 10th topic, is this asraya, which is a description of Krishna. So though we do have the Mahavishnu expanding into Garbhodaksha Vishnu, who produces Brahma, who creates all the bodies for living entities, including the devas and the manus, etc. The Lord expands further into Kshirodaksha Vishnu and acts as Paramatma in the heart of each jiva. So the Lord is doing this, and this shows how the Lord is defined as the supreme living entity in relation to the material world, at least. So he is in the material world, supervises the material world, observes the material world, destroys the material world, and he remains aloof, as is said here. He remains a vishishyate or a shishyate. He remains after everything is destroyed. So this is the definition of the Supreme Lord, which is also actually described even in the Chaturshloki, where it talks about the Lord only, I exist only. Everything else is created and destroyed. I exist only, finally. Same concept is there. So this is a definition of the Supreme Lord, independent of material creation and destruction. So that is one way of looking at the Supreme Lord as the number one entity, giving a definition of the Supreme Independent Lord, who is a conscious creator and destroyer, or whatever. But he remains unchanged. After creation, after destruction, he's always there. So in this way, at least, we get a description of the Supreme Lord, which we can then accept as final absolute truth. But the point of Bhagavatam is to go further than that, and that's why we do have this 10th topic called Asraya. So that topic is particularly about Krishna. So how is that related to creation of the material world? Krishna obviously does not create the material world directly. Got nothing to do with it. He's appearing within the material world here. But simultaneously, he is beyond the material world, and that's exactly what Devaki is saying. She's addressing Krishna, who was just being born, and saying, yeah, you're here, but you actually are beyond the material world, and when the whole material world is destroyed, you remain. She identifies Krishna as this supreme entity. However, the whole point of Bhagavatam is not only to discuss how Krishna is there, but to show how he is Swayam Bhagavan. So all the forms of Bhagavan are in the spiritual world. They're all one ultimately. But among them, Krishna is the chief person. He is the number one among all those different forms of Bhagavan. So the point of the 10th canto particularly is to point out how Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, which will distinguish him from all the others. So though these expansions here of Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and Brahma in his lifetime and all this, definitely powerful, independent Supreme Lord. But these are ultimately manifesting as byproducts of Krishna. So though we have Sarga, Visarga, all these things, topics discuss the supremacy of Supreme Lord, beyond that, beyond Mahavishnu, then we have spiritual world. On top of spiritual world, we have Krishna. So the idea is to glorify Krishna. So though Krishna is the sweetest form, which is the major, distinguishing factor of Krishna to distinguish him from other forms, he has 4 sweet qualities. That does not mean because he is sweet that he is powerless. So normally, Krishna very sweet, but then he's just, ineffectual, not very strong. But Krishna is both. He's the sweetest, he's also the most powerful. So whatever is in Mahavishnu, all the powers of Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, whatever powers are in the Lord of Vaikuntha, are also present in Krishna. But Krishna has more power than that. So not only is Krishna the sweetest, he's also the most powerful. That, of course, is also illustrated in the pastimes of Krishna himself. One example is when Brahma doubts he's used to the powerful form of Vishnu or whatever. Then he sees Krishna joking around with the cowherd boys and eating food with his hands and all this. And he says, this cannot be Supreme Lord. How can this be Supreme Lord? He's just informally eating his food with his left hand even. He's contaminated. So then he says, I'll test him. So he tests him and steals all the calves and the cowherd boys and locks them in a cave. And then he comes back after a few moments, which is almost 1 year, and he expects Krishna to be all confused and say, where do my calves and cowherd boys go? And then he sees Krishna's not confused, and he's playing with the calves and cowherd boys. And he says, how is this? And he looks in the cave, and there they are sleeping in the cave. And he looks out and he sees them playing. And then he wonders, well, which ones are the real ones? The real ones are playing with Krishna, or the ones that are in the cave are the real ones? And he gets really confused. And then he looks at those calves and those cowherd boys, and then he sees that they turn into Vishnu forms, millions of Vishnu forms, who are creating universes. And obviously then Brahma is created within the universe, and Brahma's creating all the planets, and Devatas within the universe, etc. So there's billions of Vishnu forms, there's billions of Brahmas, there's billions of Devatas, billions of Shivas, all emanating from Vishnus. And there's millions of these Vishnus. So then Brahma understands, well, I'm not the only Brahma here, there's billions of Brahmas also. But then he looks again, and then suddenly all those Vishnu forms merge into Krishna. And who was Krishna? This is a little boy, 5 years old, with the rice ball in his hand, a yogurt rice in his hand, with his flute tucked in his belt, and he's sitting there smiling. And then Brahma finally realized, oh, this little boy who lives in Vrindavan is the source of all the Vishnu forms who create all the universes, including all the Brahmas. So he realizes that Krishna is more powerful than any Vishnu form. But at the same time, he doesn't look like it because he's just a small 5-year-old boy, dressed as a cowherd boy. So in that way, he realizes that Krishna is the ultimate powerful Supreme Lord. He simultaneously understands he is also that sweet form. So this is one illustration of Krishna's power, illustrated in 10th canto. The other example that comes to mind is when Mahavishnu steals all the sons of the Brahmana, and then Krishna and Arjuna have to go, and they go up to the causal ocean, they see Vishnu, and Vishnu says, hello, how are you? And then he talks to them for a while, and they offer their obeisance, they go back. And then Arjuna's a little bit wondering, why is all this happening? And then he realizes that this is to show that ultimately even Vishnu is desirous of seeing Krishna. And therefore he goes through this elaborate thing of stealing all the Brahmana's sons, which is no offense to a Brahmana, in order to see Krishna, because he can't come to Dwarka. So in this way again, Vishnu becomes a servant of Krishna, and Krishna is the ultimate form. So in this way, the Bhagavatam ultimately illustrates Krishna is the most powerful form and also the sweetest form of all. However, in the material world, people who don't have any faith in God at all develop a little faith if they see the power of God. And therefore, in general, the first definition of God is he's the all-powerful one who controls everything, and he creates everything. So that's the common concept around all the religions of the world. God is the creator. So for that reason, the Bhagavatam also concentrates on showing how Supreme Lord is the controller of the material world, and at the same time is not affected by the material world at all. And that's illustrated in this verse, where the Supreme Lord is there, and for the whole of Brahma's lifetime he remains, and then he destroys the material world, and all the elements described here merge back into Prakriti and disappear. And who's left? Supreme Lord is left. So this is the powerful aspect of the Lord in relation to material world. So that's one way of accepting the Supreme Lord, and it's illustrated here. It's illustrated in these different topics like Sarga and Visarga and Sthana, etc. But then the other aspect is the sweetness of the Supreme Lord. So that is particularly described in the 10th canto, particularly the first 40 chapters of the 10th canto. That gives the sweetest aspect of Supreme Lord. So we can balance these two aspects of the Lord out, but we always remember that Krishna has both supreme sweetness and supreme power. Okay, any question there?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the class. You mentioned about the sequence, the 10 topics which are in Bhagavatam. Now, in our understanding from Prabhupada and Sridhar Swami explains the 10th topic as Ashraya, the 10th canto. So I heard from somewhere that Jiva Goswami hasn't changed the order, because when we take this topic, we are changing the order basically, Sarga, Visarga, etc. when we go, because if you go in sequence, then the Ashraya becomes the last, the 12th canto, but we change the order to explain. So I heard that Jiva Goswami didn't change the order and still he explained. So is there any light on that?
Actually, Jiva Goswami says we cannot identify each canto with a topic, particular topic, even if it's out of order or whatever, because all cantos have all topics, ultimately. That's one thing. And we have 12 cantos and we only have 10 topics, so you can't really force it into that either. So that's his conclusion. So he says that you can't really identify. However, Vishnu Chakravarti and Sridhar Swami, they more or less identify topics with cantos, starting with, third canto, which is Sarga. It's obvious that it's all about Mahavishnu glancing, etc. And then Visarga, the creation of Brahma. They're kind of obvious that these are the main topics. And then the fifth canto, also obvious, is about the geography of the universe with all the planetary systems and Bhumandala and Mount Meru and all this. That's just geography of the universe. These are quite obvious, the first three. And then Poshana is with, sixth. And then Manvantara is obvious also for eighth. And ninth, of course, not so obvious maybe because the Ishanukata is all throughout the Bhagavatam, but particularly it's all the, Ramchandra particularly in the ninth canto. And 12th canto obviously is destruction, 4 types of destruction. So those kind of fit very nicely. Of course, we find it a little bit out of order because the 10th topic doesn't come at the end, it comes after the 9th topic, before the 12th. So this is how Sridhar Swami and Vishwanath, they kind of identify the topics. Now, as for the explaining why the 10th topic doesn't come at the end, it comes kind of at the, third from the end or whatever. He doesn't give any explanation for that as far as I say. But we do have in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, Vishwanath describes, first 6 chapters dominant deal with Karma Yoga, last 6 chapters with Jnana Yoga, and middle chapters with Bhakti Yoga. But then Bhakti should come at the end again. So we should have first 6 chapters about Karma Yoga, second 6 chapters about Jnana Yoga, and last 6 chapters about Bhakti Yoga. We don't find that order, we find it reverse. We have Bhakti in the middle. So Vishnu Chakravarti's reasoning is that Bhakti is put in the middle to show that both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga need the association of Bhakti to succeed. So therefore, physically, their middle 6 chapters are touching the first 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters to show the dependency of both karma and jnana upon bhakti. That's his explanation for that. He doesn't really apply it to the Bhagavatam, however.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice class. Maharaj, you mentioned that Lord Krishna creates this material world and he takes so much interest in the jivas that he protects them and performs his leela. So then why is the material world said to be a place of miseries? Like we call it Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam.
Yeah.
Is the purpose of the material world to take us out?
Well, from the jiva's point of view, the material world is a place of enjoyment. It's supposed to be. And the jiva expects to. Why? Because he's in ignorance. So the jivas sit in the material world and expecting to enjoy. They get bodies so that they can experience material enjoyment. So they get material bodies with material senses, material mind, material intelligence, and false ego, so they can identify with the material world and say, I am enjoying materially. So that's out of ignorance the jivas do this. So from the objective point of view, in the view of an intelligent person or the view of Scripture, is that this is rather useless because the enjoyment itself is temporary, the bodies are temporary, and we're subject to karma. We enjoy, but then we do sinful activity, we have to suffer. So it's not pure enjoyment, it's not eternal. And ultimately, it's got nothing to do with the Atma, the jiva. It's false. It's like living in an enjoyment dream. It's like a person in coma or something, and he's living in his dream, and his dream is nothing, but actually he's suffering in his body, sitting in the hospital or whatever. So it's not real enjoyment for the self. It's an illusion of happiness created by ahankara in the material body, out of ignorance of the jiva. Yeah, so therefore, it's not actual happiness, but the jiva is expecting to get happiness. And the suffering that the jiva encounters is not the responsibility of the Supreme Lord. It's in proportion to the actions of the jivas. That is, we get karma. And we get karma because we do acts, and we're responsible for the results. So the suffering is the responsibility of the jiva. If you don't want to suffer, you don't do sinful acts. Do more punyas, go to Svargaloka, go to Brahmaloka. You have minimum 0.0% suffering in Brahmaloka. So if you avoid sins and you do your punyas, you get to Brahmaloka, and not so much suffering. So, in that way, there's various adjustments in the material world created by the Lord so that you don't have to suffer, and you can get enjoyment. But of course, that material enjoyment also, even in Brahmaloka, is temporary. And you can't stay there forever. Brahma's planet disappears after the 2 parardas, whatever, is gone, and then you have to get another material body, whatever. So, therefore, the Lord also provides spiritual processes to get out of the material world by which the jiva, not the material body and ahankara, the jiva himself can experience bliss. And how to do that? The bliss is created by rasa, rasa is created by bhakti. So when we serve the Lord and we develop a relationship, then we can get bliss, get spiritual body, and we can reside in the spiritual world eternally. So that's the ultimate purpose of the material world for the Lord, to deliver the jivas from the material world, and he provides all these opportunities throughout the day of Brahma to do that with the holy name, with the avatars, with the sages and teachers and devotees and all these different means, Manus and their descendants. In spite of that, most of the jivas don't take too much interest, and they stay in the material world. Why? Because the Lord cannot force them. He lets them choose. He gives the devotees, and they put mercy, but still, jivas are a little bit stubborn, so they stay in the material world. But with the perseverance of the devotees and the mercy of the Lord, then some of them gradually rise up and they get out of the material world and go to the spiritual world.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, Krishna is beyond the material elements, and Golok Vrindavan is also beyond the material contamination, like mind, intelligence, ego. So my question is, how does a jiva develop this idea or enviousness to enjoy separately from Krishna, to have this material enjoyment?
Yeah. So, very basically, when we first get introduced to Krishna consciousness, we have this idea that we have a Supreme Lord who's completely independent, spiritual, and whatever, like this. And we have Prakriti, which is completely unconscious and really can't do anything on its own, depends on the Lord to manifest. So Mahavishnu glances over it and creates material worlds. And then we have jivas, who are called Tatastha Shakti, or borderline energy, who are conscious, like the Lord, can do activities, etc., can experience happiness, whatever, but they are not one, like the Supreme Lord is one. They are many, and they're individuals with their own individual sense of identity and consciousness. And they're called Tatastha because they can be influenced by ignorance. Supreme Lord cannot be influenced by ignorance. He is not a small particle. So the jiva is subject to ignorance, also dependent on the Supreme Lord. Lord is independent, not subject to ignorance. So there's a difference between the jivas and the Supreme Lord. So that tatashta nature of the jiva does not doom the jiva to be in eternal ignorance, but it's always a possibility. So the jivas who are in the material world can remain in the material world infinitely, if they so desire. And those who are here now have been here since beginningless time. Those who desire to get out, get that desire by mercy of devotees, etc., and gradually they work their way through bhakti yoga and they get out of the material world. So that's how the tatashta operates. Those jivas in ignorance have a possibility of getting out of ignorance if they get a little inspiration from devotees, plus they also choose to perform bhakti. They get out of the material world. Difference, however, is that jivas are in the material world, they have possibility of getting out. So that is explained in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, where Srila Prabhupada says that we have the 5 factors, that is Prakriti, time, jivas, Supreme Lord, and karma. All of which are eternal. No beginning, no end. So Supreme Lord has no beginning, no end. Prakriti has no beginning, no end. Jivas have no creation, no end, etc. The time has no beginning, no end. But jiva, karma of the jiva, has no beginning, but can have an end. So the karma of the jiva is caused by his ignorance. So he says that's anadi, no beginning, but can have an end. So the jivas in the material world simply have to accept the position of being here, and we can't trace out a beginning, but we take to the process of bhakti, then we can end it. So that's how the jiva can be tatashta. But the thing is that once the jiva gets out, he doesn't come back. Why? He's still tatashta, but he doesn't come back. Why? Promise of the Lord. The Lord says, you come to me, you don't come back. But that's also explained in a practical way by Jiva Goswami in the Paramatma Sandarbha. The jiva situated in the spiritual world is a little bit different from the jiva in the material world. They're both tatashta still. They're jivas, they're small particles, dependent on the Lord in either case. But then why the jiva in the spiritual world is not affected by ignorance, whereas the one in the material world is? So his answer is those in the spiritual world are a little bit different. They are endowed with the chit shakti of the Lord, which is the other. Krishna has 3 shaktis, the chit shakti, tatashta shakti jiva, and external energy, bahiranga shakti. So this tatashta shakti, which is the nature of the jiva, in the spiritual world has an addition of the chit shakti. So this guarantees he stays there and doesn't fall in the material world. That, in other words, that chit shakti gets kind of intrinsically part of that jiva. And he's different from the jiva in the material world that doesn't have the chit shakti. So that chit shakti allows that jiva in the spiritual world to have knowledge versus ignorance and to experience ananda. But it's kind of stuck with the jiva, so he doesn't leave that position in the spiritual world.
Maharaj, you mentioned that everything depends on the mercy of Krishna. Like you were mentioning also that we come into the material world, and when we desire to leave, then we can go out by the process of bhakti. So I was having a conversation with one devotee once, and on a similar topic, and so even that desire to get out of the material world depends on the mercy of Krishna. And anything we do, the conversation we were having was that if we have to increase our devotional service or bhakti, there has to be mercy. If we don't get mercy, we can't do anything. So how do we explain the mercy part, but at the same time, we have to do our part as well? But doing our part also depends on mercy, so how do we understand this?
Yeah, so the qualification for bhakti is faith, shraddha. We have to have conviction in the scripture, willingness to follow the instructions of the bhakti scriptures, etc. So to get that faith in the scripture, then you need mercy of devotees. But because you don't have faith, you don't approach devotees. So then the only way you get the mercy of the devotees is accidental mercy, not that you want it. The devotee has to trick you into getting it because you will avoid it if the devotee is saying, I'm going to be merciful to you, then you run away and say, I don't have any faith in Krishna, so I'm not going to take your mercy. Because the only way you can get the faith is by the mercy, but you don't have any faith to get the mercy, so the only way you can get the mercy is get tricked into having the mercy, so to speak. So it's accidental mercy. So, in other words, if you are hungry and you take some prasadam, but you don't know it's prasadam. If you know it's prasadam, you may not want to take it. If you don't know it's prasadam and you eat it because you're hungry, then you get the mercy of the Lord, and gradually, after taking a lot of prasadam, or many lifetimes, then you get faith. So that's just one example. You could just see the Jagannath in the face in the Rath Yatra because your car got blocked by the traffic jam and you're all angry, and then you look up and you see the form of Jagannath because you're in a traffic jam. And so then that gives you a little bit of impetus to faith. But it's accidental, so it takes many lifetimes to accrue many accidental, events which caused by the devotees, so it's mercy of devotees, in order to get the faith. So therefore, the bhakti does not have a material cause. On the other hand, if we are not choosing bhakti, but we want jnana and liberation, that can operate within the material world. If you get to sattva gun, the nature of sattva gun is to inquire about Atma and to control your senses and be satisfied internally rather than externally. So in this way, the Lord is a little merciful without, depending on the mercy of devotees. You can get to jnana and proceed towards liberation by just purifying yourself in the material world and getting to sattva gun. Of course, if you use the karma yoga process, it becomes quicker to get to the sattva gun. But that's operating within the material world itself. So material world itself in sattva gun gives you an opportunity to strive for liberation at least. So that much spiritual stuff is kind of inbuilt in material nature, and you don't really require the direct influence of devotees or Supreme Lord for that. You do have to endeavor, of course, to control your senses, maybe follow the varnashram system and karma yoga, etc. So some endeavor is there. The process of bhakti depends only on the mercy of devotees, which produces the faith, etc. That does not depend on the gunas. So a person at tamakun can accidentally take the prasadam, or the person at sattva also could accidentally take the prasadam, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And so anybody in any guna could get the mercy of a devotee and then, get faith and then practice the bhakti. So in that sense, there is a dependence in bhakti for developing the faith. And then once we get the faith, then we will willingly approach a devotee to get knowledge of bhakti, etc. So that's a little bit endeavor in one sense. We got faith, and then we got to manifest that in some sort of action. That's our decision at that point. Once we do that, then we get mercy again, because then the devotees will explain scripture to us and give us the process of bhakti. Once we got that, then again, we have to put endeavor to practice the bhakti. We can't just say, well, I got the mercy of the Lord, I got the mercy of the devotees, I got the opportunity to knowledge, and you can just look at the book and not read it, not practice it. So you should put some sort of endeavor into it also. And the more endeavor you put, the more your bhakti increases. So But of course, the mercy of the Lord, mercy of the devotees is always present also. But if we don't put forth any effort, then something can happen. As we see in the case of Ajamil, chants the name of the Lord Narayan accidentally, and he gets effect, destruction of karmas. So that much you can get. But if you actually want to get prema, then you have to put endeavor into that, special endeavor, and practice pure bhakti, and get knowledge of the scripture, etc. So there is a little bit of effort on the devotee there. Mercy is always necessary, but then the effort of the devotee also is required.
Thank you, Maharaj. I had two questions. One was in relations to the 10th topic, the Ashraya Tattva, Dashanam Iha Lakshanam, that verse is there in the second canto, Navanam Iha Lakshanam. Now, my question is, all the different Puranas, do they all have Krishna as the Ashraya Tattva? Because all the Puranas have the same 10 ingredients, right? Sarga,
Yeah, they have the topics.
Same 10 topics. So
it may not be Krishna, it could be Vishnu.
Okay.
So the Bhagavatam speciality is Krishna, is that. The others do not distinguish. It's just Bhagavan, and it could be any of the forms.
Yes, Maharaj. And my second question was about we know the jiva is Anu, Bhagavan is Vibhu. Bhagavan doesn't ever get influenced by avidya. The Tatastha jiva has the capacity to get influenced like that. My question is that the jiva, although Tatastha, is nonetheless the superior energy of the Lord. How is this, what is the nature of this avidya? Is this also, it has to be a Shakti of the Lord, this whole avidya, asmita, abhinivesh, this whole sequence of things. So how is it that the jiva got influenced? I know he's Anu, we are Anu, so we have the ontological capacity to get influenced by avidya.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we are spiritual. Is this avidya also spiritual, superior, or at par with us?
No, so we have the other Shakti of the Lord, Bahiranga Shakti. So that's where the avidya is. It consists of prakriti and all of its evolutes, which is the substantial part. And then we get the more subtle aspects of Bahiranga Shakti or Maya, such as karma, time, avidya, etc. And of course that manifests, the avidya will manifest eventually as your ahankara, etc. And then the material elements, gross and subtle, which will cover the jiva, and then the jiva becomes full of ignorance due to that. The constitution of the jiva is never prakriti or never ignorance. He remains a particle, a conscious particle with a sense of I, etc. So that's can never be destroyed in any circumstance. But because of the covering of ignorance, then it may be almost as if he is not conscious, as if he's a small bacteria or a virus or something or whatever. and the more he elevates his, like in a human form, then the consciousness becomes more active, like this, like a plant, which is almost blossoming or whatever like that, as compared to a seed. So when the covering becomes a little bit less, then the natural qualities of the jiva manifest a little more. So go through the different species, consciousness, intelligence, awareness, get more and more until we come to the human being. So the human being is a state where then, because of the level of consciousness and lesser coverings, we can actually accept scripture, if we're lucky. So basically it's a matter of the jiva has his nature, but jiva is also an individual with his own sense of I, and each individual jiva is separate from each jiva with a sense of individual I. So they do have their individuality. Some will prefer to be in the spiritual world, some in the material world, because there's infinite jivas with infinite, propensities. And those in the material world, some jivas have, a propensity for greater ignorance, some for lesser ignorance, etc., because of simply their individual nature. Yeah. But through the process of bhakti, you can get rid of all the coverings, actually, and then you have the jiva in its pure state.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the beautiful class. Please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, that you were explaining to Brahmakun Prabhu's question that all this mercy also, sometimes it can be accident. And I heard that accident is only in mundane world. In spiritual, there is no accident. Everything is Krishna's mercy. So can you please...
When we talk about accidental mercy, ultimately it means, one is that the devotee it's accidental in the sense that it is not caused by the choice of that individual ignorant jiva to get mercy. In that sense, it's accidental. In other words, he has no interest in spiritual life, no desire to meet devotees, no desire to see a Rath Yatra, no desire to take prasadam, but he gets it anyway. In that sense, it's accidental because we don't have a causal explanation from that jiva's point of view. From the point of view of the devotee, of course, the devotees like to expose everybody to Krishna consciousness, and then they happen to meet that person. So in that sense, it's not so accidental because the jivas do have a desire. But then ultimately we'll have to ask, well, how come some of the jivas get the prasadam and some don't? So of course we're limited in the material world. We cannot be everywhere at once. We cannot have Rath Yatra 24 hours a day. We have it once a year or something. So therefore, in that sense, we can say maybe it's chance that the jiva just happened to come near the Rath Yatra and saw Jagannath or got some prasada or whatever. Ultimately, that, of course, we could say is maybe Krishna's arrangement also. And that he's also got his hand there because he's taking mercy on a certain jiva or whatever like that. But we can also not say that the Lord is favorable to some jivas, not to others. So we have 20 different jivas equally in ignorance, and then the Lord is merciful to one so that he can get the prasadam and other can't. Doesn't make sense either, because the Lord should be equal to everybody. So ultimately we have no explanation for other than the devotees make endeavor in the material world, and some jivas, due to the devotees' endeavor, get the chance, that's all. They get an opportunity. Whether it is Lord's arrangement there or whatever, we don't know.
Maharaj, can we say that is also maybe they must have had some pious activities previous life, so that is why even though this life they don't have desire, so it's coming as a mercy. Even seeing Jagannath, Lord Jagannath also mercy. That we thought.
Well, actually our acharyas say that punyas, or pious activities, are material. So they cannot cause bhakti. So the only thing that can cause bhakti is bhakti, because it's non-material. So it cannot be caused. In other words, you can be a pious brahmana for 20 million years. That does not guarantee you become a devotee. You may, but then the devotee may be merciful to a chandala, and he becomes a devotee, not the brahmana. Or he may be merciful to the brahmana is not interested. So it's not that the punya, which is the brahmana is full of punya, and the chandala isn't. That would not be the determining factor, the punya.
Sorry, Maharaj, not punya. Maybe they must have done some spiritual activities in their previous life. So that is, in this life, they don't have any desire, but it's coming back. So
yeah, so if you do have some spiritual, then it would have to be accidental again. Previous accidental. Yeah, so you build up on your previous accidental, or what we call accidental, devotional activities, and gradually you develop faith. And when you get faith, then you intentionally seek out devotees. So before that, we say there may be some influence of those accidental things that build up. Could be there also.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you mentioned the pastimes of Lord Brahma, and for an instant he was thinking that Krishna is competing with Krishna. And in the Nectar of Devotion it's mentioned that after that, when Lord Brahma saw the cowherd boys, the duplicates, then he was stunned, and he was offering prayers, he was faltering, his voice was faltering. and he also had humility. So all these symptoms are described in being symptoms of bhava. So is it that there's some contamination, so he was feeling this competition, but then otherwise he's in bhava, like the living entities in the post of Brahma, are they in bhava stage?
Oh, well, our particular Brahma actually is a pure devotee and is head of our sampradaya, so we can't say he is in Maya or anything like that. And it's described that actually at the beginning of Brahma's life, the Lord promised him, you will never fall into Maya, so therefore he has to be a pure devotee. And so then how did he make this mistake and try to test Krishna? So it's explained that actually this is not Maya as real Maya, as we say Yoga Maya, or the will of the Lord is for this particular pastime, so we cannot blame Brahma for that. So he remains as a devotee in any case.
Last question. Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the Padma Purana it says 400,000 varieties of human species, and those who don't follow the Vedic tradition and remaining follow the Vedic tradition. How to understand that previously coming in contact with Krishna consciousness, many of us don't follow the Vedic tradition. Now we follow the Vedic tradition. So the transmigration of the species is the consciousness transmigration of the
So in terms of material advancement, following the varnashram system and ultimately becoming sattvic as a brahmana, that's considered to be the highest, to get to sattva guna and be situated there. But bhakti actually is not sattva guna at all. It's higher than that. And it does not require sattva guna. In other words, we don't require punya and being a brahmana to get to bhakti. Yeah? So the nature of bhakti is such because it's spiritual, it doesn't require any particular guna. So then a person who's not following varnashram, even if he's a chandala or a mlacha or a dog eater or whatever, he can also take to bhakti. And he can surpass the whole varnashram system. He can surpass sattva guna. And that's stated directly in Bhagavatam. So therefore, bhakti is not dependent upon the gunas or upon Vedic system or whatever ultimately. It transcends that and it's more powerful. So therefore, only requirement is faith, and we get the faith from mercy of devotees. So if the devotees are merciful to the chandalas and whatever, rather than to the people following the Vedic system, they're the ones that take the bhakti, not the people following the Vedic system. Okay? Hare Krishna. Oh.
Sorry, Maharaj, the last question. It's very short. I just wanted to understand if there is any difference between the chit potency of the Lord that the souls, the spiritual souls in the spiritual world are empowered with, compared to the normal jivas that by nature, the jivas are Sat-Chit Ananda. So that chit potency of the Lord is different from the chit quality of the soul?
Yeah, we have the Chit Shakti or the Sarup Shakti of the Lord, which has its three divisions of Sandhini, Samvit, and Hladini. This operates in the spiritual world. The Lord manifests whatever and produces spiritual world, name, form, qualities of the spiritual world. Rasa results from that, bliss results from that in the spiritual world. Bhakti itself is composed of Hladini and Samvit Shaktis, which are part of that Chit Shakti. And where the jiva gets prema, then these become part of the jiva. And then he's qualified for spiritual world. He doesn't fall from that position. So that's the chit aspect there. The other use of the word chit is knowledge. So the jivas by nature are conscious, so they do have that aspect of knowledge. But in the material world, it's covered by ignorance. So we have jivas here who may have material knowledge, but they don't have spiritual knowledge at all. So therefore, the chit aspect is manifested in the material world as material knowledge. And though the jiva is supposed to be Ananda, he doesn't experience Ananda in the material world. he gets something which we call material happiness, which is like a dull reflection, which we experience through our ahankara and our material senses and our brain or whatever, like that. So the Satchidananda, of course the jiva is sat by nature, but he doesn't believe it in the material world. He's covered by ignorance. He thinks I'm a material body and I'm going to die. So the Satchidananda aspect is very muted in the material world and transformed into, temporary phenomena.
Hare Krishna. Santraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj ki jai. So we have a WhatsApp channel for Bhanu Swami Maharaj. Those who want to follow, the link is with Guru Prabhu. He can circulate and you can follow. You can get daily quotes, Maharaj class transcriptions, etc. Thank you. It's in the Google Play Store also. Please contact Guru Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Never happened.
That's where my question was as well. Jiva is transcendental. This avidya is a material world. Prabhu.
Mercy is coming, just take it, don't
Yeah. Thank you so much.